The craziest world we've ever lived in has watched the spectacle of the movie Fitna, which tells the truth about Islmofacism, being censored around the world. But are Western liberals who say Islamofascism is the same as any other religion the real problem? And I said Islamofascism. I didn't say Islam. That's what Selwyn Duke is here to talk about with us. Selwyn, welcome back to the Savage Nation.
Hi, Michael. Good to be on the show again. Michael, as you know, Dutch politician Geert Wilders' cinematic warning about Islamism made it to cyberspace a little while back. And to get it there, Wilders had to endure a lot of condemnation. For instance, his domain, fitnathemovie.com, was frozen by Network Solutions. The movie was removed from host LiveLeak.com's servers after threats against its staff, and then it was restored. The Dutch courts were reviewing a petition claiming that Wilders is guilty of hate speech, surprise, surprise, and Dutch firms are even threatening a lawsuit against him if they're hurt by a boycott of their products. And none of this is fair, of course. It's all political correctness. And needless to say, I have no problem with political incorrectness. But I do have a problem with the movie, with something you might call philosophical incorrectness.
Oh, yeah, really?
Let me preface my critique by saying that I give Wilders a lot of credit. I mean, no one wants to be the next Salman Rushdie, or worse still, Theo Van Gogh, or the next hate speech law casualty. So I applaud his bravery, as I'm sure you do. Having said that, his movie nevertheless reflects the very secularism that has rendered us susceptible to foreign ideological domination in the first place.
Well, what do you mean?
Here's what I'm talking about. Toward the end of the movie, Wilders shows an imam saying, in essence, that Islam is superior to other faiths. Now, this sentiment was featured for a very good reason. You see, it's thought to be a violation of a certain secular commandment, one whose embrace is considered the epitome of tolerance and the prerequisite for peaceful relations. It goes like this: "Thou shalt not proclaim thy religion superior." And the idea is that we can all get along if we just agree that all faiths are morally equal. Now, on the surface, this does seem rational. We figure that embracing what I call religious equivalence doctrine is a reasonable compromise. After all, if no one proclaims his religion superior, there's then no call for anyone to be offended, right? There's no fuel for doctrinal arguments. But it's also a huge philosophical mistake, and here's why. Let's examine this. Since different religions espouse different values, not all religions can be morally equal unless all values are morally equal. And if you say all values are equal, you're expressing the idea known as moral relativism, the notion that we can't really say any values are superior to others because they're all products of man and therefore synonymous with opinion. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, if all values are equal, think about this. How could peace be better than violence? How could tolerance be better than intolerance? How could not giving offense be better than doing so? And how could getting along be better than conflict? Huh? Heck, for that matter, how could the doctrine of religious equivalence be superior to religious chauvinism? You see, for this reason, to seek peaceful relations through any relativistic creed is self-defeating, because here's what you have to believe. You have to believe that you can credibly advocate the superiority of certain doctrines, like that which says peace is better than jihad, while also upholding the doctrine of the equality of all doctrine. So really, any moral model that has relativism at its core is doomed to failure, because it'll negate itself.
Well, of course, we need to be able to state that civilization is better than madness.
Let me further illustrate the unsoundness of this idea. We know, Michael, that we make judgments about ideologies all the time, right? We may condemn liberalism or conservatism or whatever it may be. And we can make these value judgments. Why? Precisely because, just as with religions, different ideologies espouse different values. But here's the thing. If we really believed all values were equal, we couldn't do this. We'd have to view Nazism and communism as morally equivalent to everything else. Now, is this ludicrous? Of course it is. But it's no less so than when applying it to religion or anything else. But what's so tragic is, as ludicrous as it is, relativism has nevertheless taken hold and imperils us tremendously. You see, here's the thing. By blinding us to morality, it has also blinded us to immorality. By telling us that nothing can be truly right, it has blinded us to what's truly wrong. And here's what I'm saying. If we believe all values are equal, then how can we possibly believe that some sets of values are evil? And if we don't believe evil can exist, we won't be on guard for it.
That's the problem.
You're absolutely right, Michael. And, this places a certain phenomenon plaguing us in perspective. What I've just outlined is precisely why we don't perceive threats posed by foreign religions, ideologies, or cultures, or by domestic cultural innovations, mind you, no matter what their nature may be. It's why we naively march forward, assuming everything is a matter of taste, and therefore nothing can pose a danger. I mean, prayer in school, condoms in school, God and family, homosexual parades. What does it matter? It's just a matter of changing the flavor of the day, says the relativist. So, Michael, here's what we have to realize. We may argue about what constitutes morality, and we may advocate the acceptance of some foreign cultural norm or alteration of tradition on the basis that it's superior to what's currently the status quo. After all, this is possible. Sometimes newer, different things are better. But, and here's a mouthful, it makes no sense to say that we must tolerate something, no matter how intolerable, because we won't tolerate intolerance.
Totally crazy.
And that's exactly what relativists are saying. And let me say something else. You might think this religious equivalency fiction is the culmination of that old, flawed admonition, never discuss religion or politics. But that's not the case. The truth is, it renders that maxim unnecessary. And I say this because if all values were equal, there would be no reason to discuss these matters because there'd be no answers to be found. In fact, there'd be no cause to even think about such things. There'd be no reason to use reason.
It's like the liberal animal farm. Some religions are more equal than others.
You're absolutely correct, Michael. In practice, that's how it works. That's how these liberals behave. But here's what we have to realize. Life is about finding answers. So, if nothing can be any more correct than anything else, there's no reason to think or debate. And then, to do so would be like saying, well, we know that no treasure exists, but heck, we're going to search for it anyway. So here's what we have to realize. Life is about finding answers. I mean, would we agree with the supposition that all scientific ideas were equal for the purposes of avoiding the rancorous debate we sometimes witness among scientists? No, it would be ridiculous, because if we ceased searching for truth in science, we'd stagnate and descend into error. And understand, it's no different at all in the philosophical realm. You can't achieve agreement by pretending that we can agree there's nothing to disagree about. You might as well assume we can achieve health by agreeing that nothing can make us sick. And, this brings us to a handicap we have in our battle with Islamism, a very, very severe handicap. Whatever we think of the Islamists, one thing's for sure. Our zeal can't even begin to match theirs. And why? Because people will fight much harder for truth than for taste. And the Islamists believe they have the former. They believe they have truth. Too many of us, being moral relativists, don't even believe it exists. And that is their one great advantage and our one great failing.
Amazing, Selwyn Duke. Thanks for being on the Savage Nation.
Michael, thank you for having me on the show, and God bless you and your audience.
Savage.